Hey guys, it's Andres from MasterSoccerMind.com, and today we're going to be talking about why all soccer players hate to play on turf and why it's an absolutely horrible playing surface. Just to tell you up front, there's a reason why all World Cups in the history of soccer/football have been played and will be played on natural grass. This is a playing surface that if you ask any professional soccer player between both, they'll always choose natural grass today because there are huge disadvantages to turf that we will break down today. So yeah, just to tell you a little bit about this debate, for example, the first and only World Cup that has been played on artificial turf was in the year 2015 and was the Women's World Cup. And there was a huge disagreement in this event, especially by the players. Why? Because they said that men would never, absolutely never, play a World Cup that is the most important soccer event in the world on turf. And they even filed a lawsuit against FIFA for gender discrimination. So that's how huge soccer players disagree with playing on turf. No matter how much it's supposed to improve during the last years or how well it's supposed to simulate natural grass, it will be never ever anything near to natural grass. Okay, so the question is, why, if turf is so bad, why is it becoming more and more common every single day? So first, this is a huge myth: maintenance costs or upkeep costs. Some people say that maintaining a soccer field, a turf soccer field, it's a lot cheaper than maintaining a natural grass soccer field. That's what's more logic to think, right? Like a turf field, you just put it in there, and in the other hand, natural grass fields, you need to fertilize, you need to mow the field, you need to water the field. There has to be someone that's always watching after the field, right? But that's not actually the case. That's funny because I was investigating about this and I actually found that maintaining a turf field is actually a lot more expensive than maintaining a natural grass soccer field. This blew me out. How in the world? And actually maintaining a turf soccer field costs about $23,000 a year, while maintaining a natural grass soccer field costs about $14,000 a year. There's a huge difference. So why, if it's supposedly more expensive to maintain, why are people installing more turf fields? It's supposed to cost $2,300 a year, $23,000 a year, to maintain a turf soccer field, but that's not the case. People who are putting turf soccer fields are just installing the field, and they are not giving the correct maintenance that they are supposed to receive. This is the case for a top professional turf soccer field that is supposed to run through a process of upkeep costs, but that's not the case. If we're sincere with ourselves, that's not the case. When people install turf soccer fields, they don't plan on doing any maintenance to it whatsoever. In the other hand, if they install a natural grass soccer field, if they don't do any maintenance to it, then we will have a problem. But if you don't do any maintenance to a turf soccer field, yes, it's gonna get worse and worse with time and all of that, but it's not actually something that's fundamental for a turf field. So yeah, maybe that's one of the reasons why we're starting to see turf fields more and more common every single day. Another reason is time of playing. Turf fields are more resistant than natural grass fields to everything, to the weather conditions like snow or rain. And more games can be played on turf fields than on natural grass fields. For example, let's say that there is a soccer league out there, okay? And they need to play, for example, let's say 6 games during a day. They could easily play all those 6 games in the same turf field because there's no the field won't be wasted after those 6 games because it's a synthetic field, it's plastic, it's not real. On the other hand, probably the league won't be able to develop all the 6 soccer games in the same natural grass field. And I mean, if we're talking about productivity and time of playing, then that's one of the reasons why people are installing more turf fields, and that's why we are starting to see them every single day more and more. However, with that being said, turf has huge disadvantages to it to play soccer, okay? And now we're going to name some of them. The first one, and probably like the most important one, injury risk. I mean, when playing on artificial turf fields, actually you are 45% more, you have 45% more chances to have an ACL injury in your knee. I mean, that's the worst injury that any athlete could possibly have, because you're out for a long period of time. Well, in turf, you have 45% more chances of getting it. And not only in soccer, but also in American football players, 67% of ACL injuries in the NFL happen actually on turf fields. And why does this happen? Basically because when you're playing on turf fields, the studs from the soccer cleats are not able to penetrate the ground as they would on a natural grass field. So what happens is when you try to make quick turns and cuts, the studs get stuck in the grass and you're not able to turn, which puts like a lot of stress into your, not only your knees, but all your lower limb joints. I mean, we're talking about the ankles, about your waist. I mean, absolutely everything is under more stress when playing on turf fields. Another reason is excessive heat and dehydration. I mean, some studies shown that when you're playing on a turf field, the temperature inside the field is about 35 to 55 degrees higher than the actual temperature in the atmosphere. I mean, that means that if you're playing, like, for example, at a regular 70 degrees Fahrenheit temperature, well, in the soccer field, it's 110 to 115 degrees Fahrenheit. I mean, it's a lot higher than what's the real temperature outside. And that's because of the rubber and all the plastic materials that are put into a synthetic turf field. I mean, and that causes a lot of problems to the player. One of them being dehydration. I mean, in playing on turf fields, you'll feel dehydrated a lot faster than you will on natural grass fields. So that's a huge disadvantage to us. Another thing is the unnatural bounce and ball movement. I mean, when you're playing on artificial grass, doesn't matter how great they say it is or how well they say that it mimics natural grass, the ball bounce on a turf field is completely unnatural, and the ball movement also. I mean, when you're playing on a turf field, normally there's like a lot more pace into the ball. When the ball bounces, I mean, it's like kind of unpredictable. On the other hand, when you play on natural grass, it just feels so smooth. The ball is going where us, the players, want it to go. And that's one of the major difference, that it doesn't feel real. I mean, I was watching an interview from a professional women soccer player, which her name is Sydney LaRox. She said that just the game on turf doesn't feel real. It's fake. And that's what most soccer players argue, and why they don't like playing on these turf fields. So another thing that makes that has a huge disadvantage into turf fields is that it's an abrasive surface. I mean, every time you're gonna fall in a turf field, you're gonna suffer it. I mean, probably you will have some serious burns in the skin. I mean, playing in this surface is completely horrible. And one of the worst things about playing in turf is that it takes totally away one of the most important defensive techniques of the games, which is slide tackles. In turf fields, I mean, you can slide tackle, but it's kind of like a suicide. I mean, because if you slide tackle to get the ball, you probably got bruises and burns all over your legs, because it's a very abrasive surface thanks to the friction that the rubber in synthetic fields provides. Another thing, and just like a proof that turf soccer fields are not and should not be used for professional soccer games, even though they are used today, it's because of this. When two soccer teams are playing on turf fields, the difference between them is actually smaller than the actual real difference if they would have played on a natural grass field. I mean, the game on turf fields, because it's like it gets stuck or it becomes like unnatural, the difference between both teams is actually smaller. And I would like to give you an example from a soccer game that took place in the year 2013. This game was Real Madrid versus Sadiva. In this game, basically, Real Madrid, in that year, they won the Champions League. So we're talking about a Champions League winning team as Real Madrid versus a third division soccer team, which is Olympique de Sadiva in Spain. And they were playing in the Copa del Rey, and Real Madrid visited, as you can see here on the screen, Olympique de Sadiva in their soccer field, which is a turf soccer field. And I mean, there was a lot of controversy and fights before this game because Real Madrid players were like in danger of getting serious injuries from playing in this playing surface. And I mean, guess what was the final result of this game? It was 0-0 in a turf soccer field. So you're telling me that a Real Madrid team, like a Real Madrid Champions League winning team in that season against a third division soccer team like Olympique de Sadiva, would have not beat them in a natural grass soccer field like the Santiago Bernabeu? Of course they would. Of course they would. But in a turf playing field, it ended up tight with no goals. I mean, this is something like, this is the best argument that anyone or any player, when they're against turf, they can say. I mean, how come a Real Madrid team couldn't beat a third division team on a turf field? And that's because in turf fields, it is very hard to achieve your best level. It's as simple as that. The game is unnatural, the ball bounce is also unnatural, and the game is just unpredictable, okay? It's like a huge mess when you play on turf fields. And for teams, it's just really, really hard to achieve the game that they can truly achieve. Okay. So now, this is something curious. Did you know that there is an actual difference between turf and artificial grass? Yes, there is a difference. I mean, if you don't know it, it's extremely important that you know it, because every time you're going to buy a soccer shoe, if you don't know that difference, you're running the risk from suffering a serious injury. Okay? I wrote an article about that topic, which is the big difference between artificial grass and turf. Okay? So if you want to go and read that article, you have to go to mastersoccermind.com/turf versus AG. Or you can just write on Google the title of the article, The Big Difference Between Turf and Artificial Grass. I mean, I repeat, this is super important and fundamental for any soccer player to know every time you're going to buy a new pair of soccer cleats. Because if you don't choose the correct shoe for the playing surface that you're going to play, then you're in the risk of suffering an injury, okay? Also, if you want to read this complete article in my website of grass versus turf, you can go to mastersoccermind.com/grass versus turf. Or just click the first link down below in the description. So yeah, guys, that's been everything for today's video. I hope you liked it, and we'll see you later.